This is a guitar that showed up in a couple of videos a while ago, and I don't feel like it ever really got the attention it deserves. And so we're going to talk about it specifically today, and it is actually my latest shop guitar. The previous owner, anyway, I just, he'd sent it to me to do some work on it, went back to him, it went out on loan. And I just happened to say, you know, is that guitar for sale? Because at the time that I reviewed it, I said it was probably my favorite new Martin Dreadnought. And we'll go into the reasons for that, why. But he said, well, it's not really for sale, but I'd like for you to have it. And so he made me a really generous offer on it, and there was just no way that I could turn that down. So it is now a shop guitar. This is a custom shop CS-Bluegrass-16, abbreviated CS-BG-16. Wow, that is such a strange name. There's so many things that throw people off on that name. Threw me off, you know, when I first saw this name go floating by, because Martin really has a lot of names. It's hard to keep track of the names sometimes. So, CS is a custom shop. It was a very limited run in 2016, and that's where the 16 comes from. The 16 is normally a lower model below the 18. So you got 45s, 42s, you got 28s, you got 18s, and then you got 16s, which are really good guitars for the money, but they're nowhere, you know, they're not up there in the upper echelon of guitars. And so you look at that 16 and you think, huh. But no, it stands for 2016. A limited run of 100 of them. The reason this guitar came under my radar is because I was looking at an LSV, and I said, oh, man, I would love to try an LSV in a hot rosewood, because the LSVs are Indian rosewood for the most part, and I'm fairly sure there are some Brazilian rosewoods out there on the very early run, Brazilian rosewood LSVs. And I don't think I've ever played one, but I think I've heard of them. You know, I'm going on memory here, and it's been a long time, but I remember being some Brazilian LSVs. So anyway, I really like large sound holes. I like other things about it. I was just saying I'd like to try hot rosewood LSV sometime. Well, that's basically what this CS-BG-16 is, except it has a couple of important differences. All right. So let's look at this guitar as it is and forget all the history and everything. What we have here is a 1 3/4 inch neck. It's not a V-neck. This is actually the MLO neck, modern low oval. Again, I don't keep up with the marketing on this thing. I don't know if it's an MLP or an MLO or an MLD or, you know, what it is. The thing that's funny about this, it's an MLO. The thing that's funny about this is that when I first played it, I said, this is a superb neck, at least for me, because what it has is a very even taper. The taper is super even from this fret to this fret, and I have measured this, and we're going to talk about this in just a second again, so hang on. But I commented on it, that I said, gosh, this is a good neck. For my playing style, lead guitar playing, all up and down the neck, this neck is so consistent. Way better than, it fits me better than any authentic I have played, with the possible exception of the 37, the 1837, especially the AIDS. I can get along pretty good with those necks, but they're still a little bit baseball-y neck, you know, a little bit C-shaped. I played this neck. I go, this is superb neck for my hand, my playing style, what I want out of a neck. It wouldn't kill it to be just a little bit chunkier, but normally I complain about necks. And every time I pick this up, I'm like, yeah, I can get along with this neck. Then I found out later on that it was the MLO neck, and so many people complain about the MLO necks, which is funny because I didn't know that going into this guitar. I didn't get preconceived about what it is or what it isn't. I just evaluated the guitar as it is, you see. And that's another reason I don't like to get too involved in the specs of the guitars at first. I like to play the guitar, and then I like to think, oh, this is, this is nice, or whatever. And then I look at the specs, you see. So I try really hard not to be preconceived. All right, got an MLO neck, 1 3/4 inch. It has white binding on it, of course, which I really like white binding because I like to see the dots, and I just like the visual appearance of the white binding. It has fingerboard dots, which distinguishes it, makes it different from the Tony Rice clones and that sort of thing. The dots bother some people. They don't bother me at all. I don't really see them one way or the other. I'm not hanging over here looking at the dots. It's just a non-issue for me. I have commented on other guitars that I have that don't have dots. I said, man, I'd like at least a dot on the 5th fret so that when I'm looking at the guitar and things like that, and I'm looking at it, putting the capo on it, I don't know. I just wouldn't mind having 1 dot on the 5th fret. So the absence or presence of dots is just a non-issue to me. If I was going to change one thing, I'd probably put snowflakes in there instead of dots. But really, it's a non-issue to me. So, it has a torrified red spruce top, which I didn't know last time I looked at it. I didn't know that until I looked at the spec sheet. I knew it was a red spruce top. I didn't know if it was torrified or not. I didn't know that. It has a forward X brace. The X is right here, and it's scalloped, and it also is fully scalloped in the GE, Marquee, and Authentic. Those are all there. They're fully scalloped. I mean, the scallop of it comes all the way up to the corner of the X braces. Here's the X brace, and the scallop comes all the way up to the X brace, which it does not do on any of the HD models. So all of the HDs, the HD28s, the HD28 LSV, the HD28V, all of the HDs, none of them, at least, I don't know if the modern ones do or not. I haven't looked at them. Again, trying to keep up with the nomenclature here. The reimagined, the pre-reimagined, I don't know if those come all the way to the X or not. I have not had those. The what's it called? Not the modern player, but anyway, whatever. I don't know if those come all the way up to the X or not. I haven't seen those in person, but I do know that the HD28, the HD28 LSV, the HD28V, those. The scalloping starts about 1.5 inches back from the X bracing. I have a whole video on this called Finishing the Scallop. Go look at that video, you'll see exactly what I mean. I have finished the scallop on quite a few HDs to make it more like the GE, more like the Authentic, more like the Marquee. This guitar has already got that bracing. And it's in the spec sheet, and I'm sure they give it a name, whatever. What's important to me is it comes all the way to the X bracing. Tone bars are scalloped. Now, normally, I'm not a big fan of forward X scallop bracing because I feel it gets too boomy. However, this guitar has a large sound hole, and it's 4 1/4 of an inch. I never actually measured it. Let's measure it real quick here. I never measured it. The LSV is a big one, but this one doesn't look as big. Anyway, what the large sound hole does, and I know this because I have enlarged sound holes, and I've done all that before. I have done ABs plenty of times on this. And this is 4 3/16, it looks like. 1, 2, 3, no, 16ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 3/8. It looks like 4 3/8. That's a funny spec. Whatever. It's a large sound hole. What the large sound hole does again is it allows more mids and trebles. How's that? It allows more mids and trebles, and that has the effect of balancing out the bass. So if you have a regular size sound hole with forward X, fully scalloped like a D20 at 1937, they tend to be, for me, for my taste, they tend to be too boomy. Too much bass, they don't have the balanced tone that I want. The large sound hole allows more mids and trebles to escape. And that balances the guitar out more. So it still has the bass, but it has more mids and trebles coming up on that. And the effect of that is the bass is still here, but the mids and trebles are allowed to escape. So now you have an overall more powerful, more guitar, rather than constraining things. It's very much like using a tone pot on your Strat or your Tele or your Les Paul or whatever. If you roll the tone pot off, it's an attenuator where you decrease the effect, that you decrease the mids and the trebles coming out of it. And when you roll it on, it doesn't increase anything, it allows those to escape. I think that's the way this is working. I'm not really increasing anything, I'm allowing it more of it to get out. On this guitar, so that's why I'm good at the forward X on this bass, on this guitar, because it also has a large sound hole, so everything balances. On this guitar, I modified it by taking the popsicle brace out. That also increases the trebles. That actually increases the trebles, and I've documented that using frequency spectrum graphs. You know, you're actually increasing the trebles a little bit when you take the popsicle brace out. So this one has a removed popsicle brace, but it also has the shaved rear back braces, which I'll have a video on too, and putting it back to a pre-90s back brace here makes the back a little bit more resonant. That increases the bass. So I've increased the treble, I've increased the bass. I made some modifications. It originally comes with a short saddle, which I don't like short saddles, you know. They're okay if you don't want to modify your guitar, but one of the first things I did was fill in the slot and cut a long minute saddle. It looks better to me. That's it. It looks better. It also sounds better. It's a bigger sound. I've got a video on that where I show the difference on the same guitar, same strings, same everything between short saddle and long vintage saddle. It's not necessarily better because it tends to get, you know, like I said, it's a bigger sound. So you might want that tight focus sound, and you might want the convenience of being able to pull a short saddle in and out. Although personally, if it's my guitar, I glue the short saddle in. And I had my reasons for that. Number one, it just takes up all the airspace. It makes a solid, the best connection you can get between the saddle and the bridge. It's not that big of a deal to take the glue loose. It's just not, you know. If you're a luthier, if you're any kind of workman, it should be just completely insignificant to loosen that glue bond and take the saddle out. And in the meantime, you get a rock solid connection. Change the pins to Galalith, which is basically antique acoustic. I put the black with the white dots because I felt like it matched the fingerboard rather than white dots. The white dots are a little too much, and the black kind of matches the herringbones. I just like the look. We changed the pickguard to one of Taylor Mullins's excellent Holter pickguards. I don't like the Dalmatian pickguard that comes stock on this. It's personal taste. For me, Tony Rice looking guitars, I always like the look of Tony's guitar on the Green Rattlesnake album and on the first David Grisman Quintet album where the instruments are all stacked up. Oh man, that dark pickguard on that guitar, that's the look, you know. I don't like the tortoisey Dalmatian look. So those are some changes to this guitar. Now, while we're here looking at this, we've talked about the top. Torrified red spruce is gorgeous, you know. It's got some, you know, some stripes in here, but it's just it's a very pretty looking top. The color is aesthetically very pleasing. It's got terrific looking grain variations in it, which I love looking at grain variations because that gives a character to the top for me. I don't like a uniform grain. It's just cosmetic, you know. I like to look at a top that's interesting. And this to me is a very interesting top. Super interesting. Herringbone binding, ebony, all that good stuff. Oh, it's also put together with hide glue. So that's a big deal. We're going to go over the details at the end in a summary, but put together with high degree. It has an adjustable truss rod. All of these features are like, wow, you know. If I was going to make a custom dreadnought, it would be this with the modifications that I made. So, back in charge of Guatemalan rosewood, which is a wood that I don't have. My authentics are the shop authentics are all Madagascar rosewood, and I love Madagascar rosewood, but I don't have any experience with this Guatemalan rosewood, and so that was a fun thing about this guitar that was different from anything that I have. So, this guitar checks off a lot of boxes that no other guitar in the shop collection has. I don't have any other guitars with a 1 3/4 inch neck, and I love 1 3/4 inch necks. I don't have any with that. I don't have any with an actual profile that I really, really like, except for the 70s. The 70s I really like, but none of my authentics are perfect. That 41, that D28 41 authentic, as good as it is, as good as it sounds, I just don't like the neck that way. I wish it was just a little bit bigger. Now, here's the funny thing. Let's continue on this checklist here. So I don't have anything with the 1 3/4 inch. I don't have anything with the wider bridge spacing, except again the 70s, which I've overhauled. I don't have any guitar with a forward expiration that's fully scalloped. I don't have any guitar with a torrified red spruce top, and I don't have any guitar with Guatemalan back and sides. So this guitar checks off a lot of boxes. I do have guitars with large sound holes. The Prues have that, but I don't have any Martin with a large sound hole. So this guitar checks off a lot of boxes that none of my other shop guitars do. Alright, done. Now the MLO neck. Alright, this is an interesting thing. I've been going back and I've been measuring necks again. Getting my database of neck sizes back up again. I lost the file at one time during the great upheaval when I had to move. I had a file with all kinds of necks in there, and I lost the actual Excel data file. I still have the graphs and things like that, but I don't have the data. In other words, I have pictures of the graphs. I don't have the data for the graphs. I could go backwards. I have the pictures, but I don't have the data. So I've been going back and measuring necks again. And what I do is I measure the width at the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and 12th frets. And then I measure the depth. And I measure the depth of what I call the playing depth. I don't take the strings off. I don't measure to the fingerboard because that's not the measurement I want. I want a guitar that I say, that feels comfortable to me in my hand. What is the hand depth? What's the actual real playing depth with the frets, with the strings, with everything? The other thing is it's a lot easier to measure that because you don't have to take the strings off. And so you can go into a shop and you can say, gosh, I love this neck. I want to know sort of what the specs in this neck are. And you can get your calipers out and you can measure it right there without having to take the strings off. So it's just a much easier measurement to do. And what you do is, what I do, is take the calipers and push the string down to the fret. And I measure the calipers the same way. So the calipers are measuring here, string, fret, neck. Everything. Surprisingly, I was really surprised to see this. I really was. This neck is deeper than the D2841 Authentic. It's deeper from the 1st to the 5th frets. And then at that point, the 41 gets more taper to it and gets slightly fatter. By slightly, I mean about 20 thousandths of an inch, which is a pretty good number for, for a neck where you can really feel that. But it's not really super dramatic. But it definitely proves to me that this has a super even taper. But what was surprising to me was it is in fact fatter at the 1st to the 5th frets, the width, than the D2841 Authentic. And then as it gets up here, it is less fat than the 41, but that makes it have a really smooth, even taper. And one of these days, I put all these neck specs together into a single issue. I would do it right now, except for the fact the video is already too long, and I also don't have the data here with me. So you have to take my word for it. But I was surprised that the depth of this neck is not that far off of quite a few other Martins. It's not that far off of the 70s, for instance. It's wider, of course. Now, but it proves to me it's a really good neck, and it's an oval but I feel a V in there. I mean, to me, I would call that a very soft V because there definitely is a slope on that shoulder. It's not like the D1839 authentic, which has a very round baseball bat shape to it. Very round, and that's why I don't like that neck, and I have a video on that, why I didn't buy this incredible guitar, because of the neck. Because that C shape does not agree with my hands. This neck agrees with my hands. Alright. I will say this, it is really nice going back to a 1 3/4 inch neck. I used to play 1 3/4 all the time. 1 3/4, 23, 30 seconds is fine. Then I started into the 70s and then the authentics, and I could not stand the 37 authentic neck. It has the complete opposite of this neck. It starts off super, super thin, thinner than this neck, and gets to be the fattest, absolute fattest neck I've measured, except for the D45 authentic. And so you have this radical taper. If you go look at my last video, there's a chart over here on the wall, and that was me showing somebody the angle of that neck. And I do not like the 37, so that's my only option for a 1 3/4 inch rosewood guitar. So, I haven't played one in a while. It's really nice to get back to 1 3/4 inch neck, even though my hands are just kind of average, size 8, size 9 gloves. 1 3/4 just gives me more room in here. It's more relaxing. It's easier for chords like that. It's way easier for swing chords where I can rotate just a little bit. I can make the chord clear. I can make it choppy. I just have so much more control. And over here on the right hand, I get this swing going that I like. I don't like to do this tight little motion like this. I got to get that hand swinging. It's relaxing. So I've been playing this guitar for the past couple of weeks, and it's so nice having the 1 3/4 inch wider bridge spacing. I think it's probably 2 3/16. I don't think it's 5/16, but it's wide enough. It's great. So if you go back and if you watch my 5 guitar video, I played Alabama Jubilee on this guitar, and the reason I did that is because it was so easy to do all the cross picking stuff on Alabama Jubilee, which is difficult for me on the 11/16 inch necks because they're tighter. It's just a little harder for me to pull off some of the Alabama Jubilee stuff. So it's just me, it's my fat fingers, it's things like that. So anyway, that's this guitar. CS-BG-16 checks off a lot of boxes that none of my other shop instruments do. It's going to be useful for using for comparisons. Like to play it? Good guitar. Great guitar. Still, I think it's still my favorite new Martin Dreadnought. I like it better than the 41, even though the 41's got some. The 41A has got a great sound to it, don't get me wrong on it, but the playing on this one, it's just the neck is there, the bridge spacing is there, the balance is there. I like this one, yeah. If I could only have one, it would be this one, no question. So, we should play a little bit. I should be warmed up. It's hot enough in here now. It's balanced, So smooth. I'll see what I can play. Right there, for instance, you see, I'd never actually done that before, and I can, in that phrasing, and I can pull it off on this guitar, and I've got, it feels like I have so much room over here between the strings. It just feels so much better on my left hand. I'm not having to worry about hitting the other strings, and the hand can just touch in and get those notes. So I'm telling you, it's just that last little extra 2%, 5% comfort level. So. And I'm not thinking of this on the fly. I haven't played that in a long time, but let's see. Like that. Yeah. Anyway, point of that is I have not played some of that stuff in a long time. And so this guitar, I was able to think of it, remember it on the fly, and pull it off pretty well without having practiced that. The guitar is responsive to me. It's easy to pull off stuff that I haven't practiced because there's forgiveness in that wider spacing. It's also set up really well for me. It's set up with the low accent. It just plays like absolute butter. So I played that song specifically because it's a fairly difficult contest tune that I've used in contests, and I haven't practiced it in a while. It's fairly difficult. I was able to pull it off, and I was able to think of it on the fly for the most part, and do it. And that's what you want in a guitar. You want a guitar that you can play. I want a guitar that I can play and not have to fight. So, all right, let's try one more. Let's try the Dancing Fiddle Blues, which is something I've recorded a million times. So.